Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder. Today we are diving into i3 Vertical's latest quarterly filing, and let me tell you, it's a bit like a roller coaster with some unexpected turns. We're going to unpack everything from their revenue to their debt, and I promise it'll be more exciting than it sounds. This financial report reveals a company in transition, selling off parts of its business to focus on its core strengths, but are these moves paying off? Let's find out. But before we start, if you appreciate getting straight insights from corporate documents, make sure you're subscribed. We also have a Discord community linked in the description below. Join us for even deeper discussions. i3 Verticals just released its report for the quarter that ended in March of 2025. Let's dive right into the numbers. Total assets decreased from about 731 million to about 646 million. This change really tells us a story about where i3 Verticals is heading. The filing also shows that the cash and cash equivalents took a big hit, going from 86.5 million to just 7.7 million. That's a pretty significant drop. What's going on? Well, the first thing we see is a rise in revenue, even though net income fell sharply to $769,000 from $3,348,000 for the 3 months ended March 31, 27,000. That was a good sign. Now, here's an interesting twist. Interest expense dropped dramatically from $7,714,000 to just $446,000. That is a big cut. This suggests that they were able to lower their debts. To understand why their cash took a hit, we need to scroll down to their net loss income from discontinued operations, net of income taxes. This item shows that i3 Verticals had a $306,000 loss, which contrasts sharply with the $5,650,605 in the same period last year. This section tells us a story of a company undergoing significant changes. They actually present information related to discontinued operations. So let's scroll to that table, which shows revenues in that section. As a matter of fact, we can see that for March 31, 2024, discontinued operations generated $36,574,000. Doesn't 443 under $4,000, oddity $4,000. What happened? Well, they sold off a chunk of their business to clean up their balance sheet. Smart. To help us understand their moves better, let's scroll to their equity table to see how it's changed. This table gives us a breakdown of what's happening with their shares. We can see that they engaged in repurchases of stock, which is great for investor sentiments, meaning the company trusts its stock is undervalued and worth buying more. Looking closer at the payments of interest, cash flows are very important to monitor what is going on behind the accounting. As such, $440,000 cash paid for interest expense shows us a drastically different number than the previous period with $14,001. This number really shows how their debt load has been drastically changed and improved their situation. Very smart move. That takes us to the main point of this filing. According to the statement of organization and Accession's i3 Verticals is focusing on what they know how to do best. So why sell off a big chunk of the company? Well, let's scroll to the Accession section. It seems they decided to strategically discontinue their merchant services business. They sold it for a cool $447 million to pay Rockbuyer LLC, which will give them capital to grow in the areas they want to focus on and also decrease debt levels. This is further confirmed by a later section that explicitly mentions a large debt payoff, using cash for the settlement. It's also worth pointing out from Accession's part that i3 Verticals is planning on strategically acquiring more companies as they've done historically. For example, during 2024, they acquired Ejoloca Limited for $27.5 million to expand their business. With the sale of healthcare RCM business, now they'll be focusing on public sector and healthcare. Now let's see profit expense and other current assets. This portion shows how i3 Verticals is managing its resources. Some of the biggest ones are licensees, which suggest they want to increase efficiency, but they reduced inventory. Maybe they are reducing stock for some reason. Let's find out what happened with their goodwill in this financial maneuver. Goodwill and intangible assets. Now, this tells us that they have about 280 million in public sector goodwill. And what is goodwill? It represents the premium a company pays when acquiring another, above the value of its assets, reflecting things like brand reputation, customer relationships, and intellectual property that aren't separately valued. Next, scrolling to their long-term debit net and reading on. This section gives us some more confirmation about the plan to sell off merchant services business in order to reduce its debt. Now, scrolling to the legal section under commitments and contingencies is the part of the report to get a sense of things that the company fears, lawsuits, financial risks, guarantees. Let's check out this paragraph. They are still tangled in some legal drama, including S&S litigation, a case where they could be on the hook for a lot of money. But here's what the lawyers think. It will not have a material impact on the company's consolidated balance sheet, results of operations or cash flows. Well, see, so how did the taxes get affected by these big moves the company is doing? The section on income taxes and tax receivable agreement. In other words, i3 Verticals has to make some big payouts related to tax benefits they get. I always pay attention to the N-party transactions section to see if anyone within the company is benefiting beyond their salaries. One last scroll. The company then describes a subsequent events section which happened after this report. In particular, their recent acquisitions and recent divestiture sections will be worth reading. Now, let's bring it all together to assess the company's trajectory. After a strategic sale of their merchant services business, i3 Verticals have less cash for now and made a loss, but managed to drastically improve their debt and plan for higher earnings in the future. A great move with a high return for those who have shares in the company. Additionally, the team might still be under pressure from high competition within their industry. What we are seeing with the steps in this report is great in the long term and will reflect in higher valuations. Alright, that's our breakdown of i3 Verticals' latest filing. What's your take on these numbers and what they signal for the company's future? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this analysis was valuable, hitting that like button really helps, and subscribe for more deep dives. Don't forget to check out the Discord in the description. Thanks for watching. See you next time.